Welcome to the Dynamic Alliance of Theatre and Technology, which is part of a series of events in the Gilder Coigney International Theatre Award Programme. It's produced by the League of Professional Theatre Women. This programme celebrates the achievements of theatre women across the globe and the many ways in which they're using their artistic practice in traditional and innovative forms to motivate public dialogue and stimulate action in the struggle for peace and justice. So in today's program, we're absolutely delighted to introduce our panelists. And if you wouldn't mind just like raising your hand so we know who you are. So I'm going to introduce Faynia Williams from England. Hello, thank you for joining us. I'm very, very proud and delighted to see you. Avra Sidiropoulou from Greece. I'm sorry if I butchered your name there, Avra. Lupe Gehrenbeck from Venezuela. Hello, hello, hello. And Burbuqe Berisha from Kosovo with her amazing translator, who's also joining us, Alba Marina, who also is an amazing director in her own right. So each of these women have made extraordinary contributions, not only to the world of theatre and film at large, but also have made really extraordinary inroads to celebrating and supporting women's work in their field of expertise. So before we go into our discussion, I can't wait to talk to you all again. It's so lovely, as I say. I'm very honored to be in this room with you all. We are going to show a short video clip which shows all of these women's work ethic, their aesthetic, and which we will be asking questions in that form.
Ξέχασες να ανάψεις τη θέρμανση. Εκεί τους καθοδηγούν δυνάμεις τις οποίες δεν μπορούν να ελέγξουν σε μια κοινωνία ηθική όπως η δική μας.
Want you apologize. Rejected Phaedra.
Είμαι βέβαιος ότι δεν είναι λιγότερο επιρρεπής από άλλους εσύ. Πιο αργά. Αλλά πιο αργά.
That night, we ceased to pretend we were the landlords of our destiny. Everyone knew at the end.
Στάσου. Είστε ευτυχισμένοι, κυρία? Ναι, κυρία.
As soon as it was moonlight and that poor thing began to crawl and shake the pattern, I got up and ran to help her. I pulled and she shook. I shook and she pulled, and before morning we had peeled off yards of that paper. I've got out at last, in spite of you and Jenny.
Ja do me ka njeri dhe me ka ku falë sëltat me ka ku ko për atër si jem shkullu edhe 100 herë dhe të bo luta 100 herë të me shku edhe 100 herë s'kam nevoj për kur për shpërtimi.
A doktor, vjen kesh po fëmija nuk jeton me.
Është smundje tinzare.
Qysh nuk e ka më vrejt.
Ja, nuk është faji juj, kja mundet më ndodhë gjithë kujtë.
Po unë jam nëna vetë.
I karo Serbia Amerikës. Karo Serbia Amerikës. comunis violines, mumsu. Tona scomparse me violina. Io quando sa a Pelivan, canartul Maraș, cul mioni cacaldis harmonicas, unul dașulu harmonicas.
Maimuna, cuculare, nici delicicave, le concerten, le pos.
Sandwiched, crushed from south and north till the living meat must break out. This will be no picnic, so sharpen your steak impaler. Let it hold its ground. They whisper the name behind my back, but I impale them quite openly. Vlad the Impaler.
When we were working at the National Theatre in Romania, we met their noble nominee, Marin Sărescu.
His play was a huge hit in the latter days of Ceausescu, and it showed the power of theatre to help bring down a dictatorship.
And I went past the church that was full every Sunday, and the school that once rang with singing and play. And both were dead silent, the windows all boarded, the children and teachers had all gone away. A dreary and desolate silence descended. Sighing I heard. I raised my dull head, saw a cart down the street had stopped by a door for a woman and baby and young man dead.
What you will find is very true scientific facts, but presented in a really entertaining way. Richard presents you simply with words, a wonderful flow of words, not a single stage direction, not a single piece of punctuation, and out of that one's imagination as a director can soar.
Bug bites on beach bums and boobos on bimbos, gangrenous tubers and testes of jumbos, blood-sucking jiggers and flesh-eating flies. These are the poisons that give me a rise.
Matilda, 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 she take me money around Venezuela. Matilda, 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 she take me money around Venezuela. $500 friends alive. Woman did the stomach cotton horse. Matilda, she take me money around Venezuela. Everybody, Matilda, sing the card.
Wow, that's amazing. So as you can see, we have a huge, very versatile mix of theatre and film combined, which is incredible to see. One of my first questions to all of you ladies today was, also, not only are you, based primarily in theatre, but you have this incredible reach out to film in your work as a foundation for your film and theatre, for your theatre work actually. And one of the questions I wanted to hang our hat on with all of you ladies here is, beginning in the foundation of theatre, how and why did you decide that film would enhance your theatrical vision, and how did you execute that? And I wonder, and obviously this has defined you as an artist going forward in your life. And I wonder, Faynia, if we could begin with you, as you do have this wonderful production, I Am a Warehouse, which was supported by a lot of film and content.
Yes, I first of all, I have to say, I want to see every single one of those productions that I've just seen excerpts from. Yes. They look so amazing. There's a terrible echo, Richard. Can you do something about that? Sorry. We had a friend who was the United Nations representative in Gaza called Chris Gunnis, and he had made a film of an unexpected bombing of a warehouse there in which several people were killed. And it was very symptomatic of what was going on between Gaza and Israel at the time. Now, our theatre isn't political with a big P, but we do try to relate to society as well as entertain. And Chris contacted me because he had had a film of the whole thing which was banned. And he said to me, look, this is an amazing subject. Can you do a play in some way that tells people what has happened without necessarily taking sides, hearing both sides, let them make up their own minds, which is what we like to set out questions and not necessarily give the answers, but let the audience work on the answers. And in addition to that, I should say right at the beginning that critics have always said my work is very filmic, and I never quite knew what they meant by that. I think it's quite intriguing. I've always tried in theatre to be able to get close up, like you do in films, as well as long shot. And I think that's why they called it filmic, just the way I work with the space and with the actors. So anyway, we love a challenge. And when Chris Gunnis said this, Richard came up with a play. First, and then we went to Gaza. We managed to get in. The French foreign secretary who was in front of us in the queue to get into Gaza got turned down, and we were the next non-important people, so they took us in, they let us get in. And that was an experience in itself. While I was there, I took about 41 hours of film. We went from top to bottom of the country. We went into schools, we went into hospitals, we talked to former very successful businessmen who didn't have any business anymore, hoteliers, all sorts of different people. And I came back and I had the play and I had the film I'd taken. And that was the first time I'd incorporated any amount of film, not just as a background, but actually as part of the creation of the piece that involved what I'm always very interested in, the use of space. We found a place in Brighton or near Brighton that had never been used for theatre before. It was an ancient fort and it was right above the sea. And there was a huge amount of outdoor space we could use. There was a schoolroom we could use. And then there was a sort of workshop room we could use. The piece attracted a lot of attention. We were full. We had a Q&A at the end of it, which brought up all sorts of things. And I realized, I was aware during rehearsal of the huge difference between using technology and the live thing that theatre is, the single moment in time and space, single one moment that each performance is, with one audience. And all these things began to mull in my head. And I began to realize that there was a huge possibility I'd always try to ignore technology because I love the liveliness of theatre. But I began to realize there was a huge possibility using technology. So I began after that to incorporate it into my work. I had to, in a sense, retrain the actors because most of the people that I worked with were live theatre actors, and they needed a different technique, obviously, for a camera. They loved it. They loved the fact that they were able to go from one end of acting to another end of acting through the use of technology. Live theatre has always been more immediate, I think. Yeah, and it's, as I said, in one place and one time. But with the technology, you have more than one chance to get it right. You only have one chance to get the actual live theatre right. So it's more dangerous in a way. But the technology brings in something that you can try in several ways, in many ways. And the actors loved this chance to, and my prime work is with actors and the space. And they just loved being able to, again, have both ends of the creative process. And
you have, Faynia, you have this this great site-specific visual that seems to be a big part of your work. Yes. I think I mentioned to you that I really felt like you should bring this to the Armory because it would do amazingly in New York. So maybe that's something that you should consider.
I'd love it. After you said that, I saw a production set in the Armory, and I thought, that's my space.
Yeah,
you know, I love to work with actors in a space that hasn't been used as theatre necessarily. It might have been used for plays or something like that, but isn't labelled theatre. That actually, I'm terribly interested in architecture.
Yeah.
And, you know, the first thing I do when I go into a space where I'm going to work is actually look at the architecture and think, what does this say to me in relation to the work I'm about to do? So I think using technology has so many possibilities. It also increases your audience. I think one of the original ways, types of theatre that used technology were, or still is, rock concerts. And we can learn so much from the excitement of a rock concert and put that into very serious theatre. How you get that excitement, how you get that largeness of vision, and the technology can really help you do this. I think you haven't to be obsessed by the division between the technical and ordinary rehearsals. I mean, we actually, in live theatre, have always had a rehearsal that's called the technical rehearsal, the tech, as we know it. Yeah. And it comes before the dress rehearsal. And it is supposed to be the time when we work on everything technical. And we include exits and entrances as technology in a way, you know. And it suddenly made me think of all sorts of different ways of doing exits and entrances. Yeah. Yes. I found it, I don't know, I found it, the huge possibilities, because in live theatre, the audience is in the same space and the same moment in time, but you can go to different times, you can go to different spaces with the technology. Oh, there's so much I would like to talk about with the others, really, rather than just on my own.
Well, no, but no, I mean, actually, it brings us very, very succinctly to Avra, actually, because Avra, I know that Phaedra I was done in Greece as well as England, in London, correct? Just to remind our audience, that was the amazing projections on the skirt of the actress, which was really stunning, so stunning. What inspired that, Avra?
Okay. Here's the picture from the London production, actually. The other image was from a workshop of the play that was done in Athens. And we experimented a lot with projections. I must say that yeah, that's right. This is it. I'm extremely grateful to my set, video, and costume designer, Michaela Liakata, who's here with us today. And she and I worked a lot in the room together to build up this cosmos, this entire cosmos for Phaedra. And it all started by an idea that technology can actually reflect on the experience of a split identity and a subject being manipulated at the director's will or at the writer's will. So in that production in particular, we worked with different projections and different voiceovers that substituted for the missing characters in the text, as Phaedra is actually interacting with different projections of Theseus or Hippolytus, a chorus of women. These are all images that are projected on her huge dress, which is actually also the set design for the production. And it's very interesting because it requires a lot of the actor to work with a digital image that is supposed to be a counter character or even her own reflection. She's also in dialogue with her own self. So to me, the inspiration, to go back to the initial question that you asked about, where do we draw? How did it all start?
Yeah.
It came from it wasn't so much a decision, a conscious decision. It was more of an impulse to explore different possibilities of representing reality. And I think as theater artists, we all felt at some point there are certain boundaries that cannot be crossed through the theatrical art. And technology allows us for building and expanding forms of representing reality rather than simply being, a backdrop as an image or, providing a beautiful scenographic kind of state of mind. It's much more than that. It builds entire universes on stage. Technology for me became a very valuable tool when I directed the play called And God Said. I think that's image number 7 to help Kati. In Istanbul first and then in Tehran. It is a play very much about a dystopic future where a man and a woman are stranded on a landscape that has been transformed after a kind of nuclear destruction. So it was very difficult for me to think realistically, and I kind of pushed myself further to come up with a different medium to represent this dystopia, this post-apocalyptic kind of quality in the play. And I was very lucky to be working with a set designer who recommended an animation group from Turkey.
Oh, wow.
Who created all these different animated images that were projected in the background. And they really, I felt, became a kind of home for this strange and elusive quality that couldn't be stated in words. So that's how I started working with technology. And I feel that there is something about video projections, film editing that helps transgress the limitations of the theater form. And there is something about working with video designers that can expand our interpretation of the play.
Do you, Avra, do you tend to work with the same designer? You mentioned, I think your designer is here today, right? Do you tend to work with the same designer, or have you worked with a varied amount of designers on this kind of work?
I've worked with different designers, although with Michaela, I think we've really hit it off very well, and we're collaborating on the next project, which is Troy 2 by Karim Alpid, a kind of mixed media adaptation of a very, very short play, and we're creating that in a different form for the internet. I like to work with different designers, and it's also the logistics sometimes because we all live in different parts of the world. But with all the designers that I've worked with, we kind of share the same basic work principle that technology is not just a way of creating scenography. It becomes a dramaturgical tool. It becomes something that helps us compose a different text, the performance text that we put on stage.
Yeah, no, it's. I mean, it's just the images is just so visually stunning. And actually, this brings me to you, Lupe, because thank you so much for that, Avra. Lupe, because I know that your inspiration has been taken from actually your community, and actually creating a project out of that whole background and that foundation. I wondered if you wanted to talk a bit about that. Oh, Lupe, you're on mute.
Sure. I took some notes to help my English. So I was born in Venezuela, a country that still carries some stigmas from its colonial history. One of them is that we admire other cultures more than our own, always imitating what and how people do things in the North, in the first world. From there, I started developing the need to talk about us here and now, not through local versioning classics, nor adapting to international trends, but producing original theater on our specifics and reality. I wanted to do theater on what moves and affects us, posing specific questions, looking for possible answers, our answers. That was the beginning of using film in my theater productions. I wanted to have a proof of reality, a support for the theater I create. The first time I used film was in a play called Las Niñas de Santa Fe. That was the little fisherman village I was visiting. And I observed the girls aged 10 or to 12, it was easy for me to guess that a bunch of them would be already pregnant in my next visit in a year later. Pregnant, then abandoning school, then pregnant again, and so on, going from one partner to another. Why could I imagine their future like that so easily? I wanted to know their own understanding on the matter. So I recorded a group of interviews asking the girls how they imagine their future. What would they want to be as grown-ups, personally and professionally, if they would stay in the village or if they wanted to migrate to the city? What they think about love, if they would like to have children? Their spontaneous and sincere answers inspire me to create the play. Simply comparing their cosmogony of hopes and fears to other or society, I could discover amazing coincidences. In doing so, I wrote a play that reveals the reality of Venezuelan women. And from there, I try to project the future of the country. I mix the reality captured in film with my interpretation of it in theatrical terms. Facts and fiction interacting in real time, past, present, and future, far and near, memory, beliefs, hopes, and action. Between each scene, I showed videos so the public could easily establish the links between fiction and reality, hoping this would slowly drive them to a deeper understanding of the reality they are part of. I don't know if that is clear enough. I hope so.
Yeah.
Otherwise, yeah.
Most definitely. I mean, I would say, you know, in doing this project, Lupe, you probably awakened a huge inspiration in these women, in these young girls that maybe would never have been imagined before you came into that picture. Would you say that?
Yes, absolutely. And from then on, I have used video in many other plays and ways, even for education, for educating in theater, in the field of theater. But I mean, those girls were facing themselves as in a mirror through this video. And then when I showed them the video of the theater play, which included their videos, they were like invited to to guess a different kind of future.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's very interesting. You know, all of you, you amazing women have really inspired other women, I think, to follow in your footsteps. And I think this brings us to you, Burbuqe, because you were, I think, the first woman to graduate in your program in film and directing in Kosovo. And also, I think you've been a torch or a leader for the women in your country. Would you, and I'd love to hear more about how you started and what inspired that that whole vision. And really, I mean, I think Alba is one of your amazing supporters in this respect. I think I'm right in saying that, right?
Faleminderit shumë, domethënë jam shumë e lumtur mas parit që po flasin gjuhën teme, edhe pse s'pe kuptonin, ndoshta është mirë me ndëgju muzikalitetin që e ka gjuha shqipe.
I'm very happy today, thank you all, and I'm very happy today that I'm talking in my own Albanian language, even though you're not understanding it, but it's very melodical language.
It sounds good.
Thank you. Domethënë fillimi jam ka qenë domethënë shumë herët edhe kryesisht ndoshta me përpjekje për teatr, para se me hi në akademi, ka qenë pjesa kur unë e kom bo një dramë, e kom shkru me 3 femna, kjo ka qenë shtytja jam e parë që e kom punu, po kur nuk e kom publiku, ka me vetëm si shkrem, edhe tash kohën e fundit kom fillu me mendu që me publiku.
My beginnings were a long time ago, and my first inspiration was for theater before entering the University of Arts in Pristina. The first thing that I've done before starting university was a screenplay with 3 women that has never published, but lately I started to think to publish it.
Oh,
Domethënë ka qenë shumë motivuese për mua. Mandej kom fillu dhe jom regjistru në fakultetin e artëve, ku ka pas domethënë teatr edhe film, dhe mu edhe pse shumë e du teatrin, gjithmonë, edhe pse kom përfundu, domethënë pjesa e parë është filmi, mandej teatri, televizioni, domethënë teatrin e kom pas si dashurinë teme më të madhe.
Then later on, I started Faculty of Art in University of Pristina. It was a major film and minor theater. Even though the major was for the film, the theater has remained always my biggest love.
Domethënë kom fillu edhe kom vazhdu me punu paralelisht edhe teatr edhe film, edhe në gjatë studimeve, që për studentë atjerë ka qenë shumë ma e vështirë, domethënë vazhdimisht kom punu edhe në teatr edhe në film, edhe jom mundu gjithmonë me rujt pjesën e teatrit si diçka shumë dirgjit edhe shumë të mirë, pa përzi shumë me teknologji, edhe pse ka shumë gjana në teknologji që i kom fu, domethënë si për shembull drita, pjesa kolone zanore, mënyra e transmetimit të krejt. Po incizimet në teatr ka qenë shumë pakta në prodhimtarinë teme, sepse unë kom punu paralelisht film shumë, njëjtë, domethënë sa film, sa teatr.
So during the studies, I have worked in both of them, in theater and in film. But what is very important is that since Burbuqe has worked so many films, she never wanted to incorporate that much the recordings on the theater, since she wanted to be that part as very pure and virgin as theater used to be a long time ago. So the only technology that she has worked and incorporated in theater was sound and lights.
Edhe pjesa kryesore që është ndoshta motivimit tam, domethënë ka qenë pjesës përditshme edhe pi motivimit ton, sepse në një kohë të gjatë, rinia jame, ndoshta faza jame më kryesore e rinis, ka qenë gjithmonë në përpjekje për liri. Domethënë edhe në një luftë për liri, pas vitit 99, kur na jemi rikthy prapë në Kosovë, ka qenë një dashuri e madhe me punu për teatrin edhe për filmin, që kemi folë edhe ma herët, Dhe domethënë krejt veprat e mia, edhe nëse kanë qenë pjesën e satirës e komedisë, kanë qenë në një luftë për lirinë tonë.
So the Burbuqe's youth was in the time of the war, and it was always the urge for the freedom. And when they came back in 99 after the war, it was the main thing that she wrote and did all the plays for the urge of the freedom and for the social things that we were coping in Kosovo.
Nështë vetë në veprat e mia nuk kom pas shumë pjesë teknologjisë, po gjatë kohës sa kom menaxhu teatrin, në teatrin kombëtar dhe tash në këtë pjesës jo publike, në pjesën private, shumë kam dëshirë që autorë tjerë kur kanë pas pjesën e videos. Domethënë I kam përkrah vazhdimisht me pas një inspirim të tillë.
Even though in her own plays she did not incorporate so much technology, as the director of the National Theatre of Kosovo and the director of the other theatre, is called, she always supported all the directors that wanted to incorporate videos in the plays, in the theatre plays.
Well, I would, like I said, I would imagine you've been a huge beacon for women in your country, and have created many opportunities in that respect. But yes, Faynia,
what Richard has been saying made me remember when I actually, in this field, go much further back than I said, because I was 4 years fellow in theatre at the University of Bradford, and it was a university that had no arts at all, not even an English course. It was all science and technology. And I was fellow in theatre, and I learned what the arts of theatre could mean to scientists, technology people, to people who just weren't really interested in anything artistic. They may read, but they usually read science or something like that. And 4 years there, making theatre for these people was an extraordinary learning experience. And I think a lot of that has fed into my work since.
I think absolutely. I think we're all inspired, aren't we? We are all the creation of our past, and this is what we take forward into the future. I'd love to actually ask you, Faynia. So obviously in this current climate of the pandemic, how has that changed your inspiration, or actually has it inspired other projects through what we're actually currently experiencing? I know that you have this trilogy, a lockdown trilogy, which I'd love to hear about.
Yes, we decided to do a lockdown trilogy, and because so few people are working at the moment, we were able to get brilliant actors that maybe would not have been free normally. And also, I also continue to do what I'm really interested in, and that is discovering new actors. And I discovered a new 16-year-old schoolgirl who did a wonderful piece, which was Onegin, Tatiana's letter to Onegin, in Eugene Onegin, the great Russian epic poem. And it's a young girl who falls in love with someone who is really good looking and far beyond her reach. And she writes this letter to him. And this 16-year-old girl that I discovered, a schoolgirl, did the most wonderful version of, she'd never, directing in a pandemic when you're in a different place is really hard.
Yes, yes.
And it was great working with this total innocence of the arts and theatre and what an actress is supposed to do. And she was so sincere, and she did her research brilliantly, which all actors should do. And it was wonderful. That was one of the pieces. The other piece, I had Sam Crane, who is now really well known because he works with Mark Rylance, and he did Farinelli and the King. He played Farinelli, and Mark Rylance played the King in London and Broadway.
And Sam Crane is your son, right? I'm not sure if everyone knows that.
He just happens to be my son. But he's also a damn good actor who doesn't always work with his mum because he's always in demand. But he did an extract from Pushkin again, The first line is running through fields. And Peter Sellers, the American director, saw this and said, the future of theatre now is running through fields, which is really lovely. And the other person who did one of the extracts was Daniel Finlay, who is the son of a very famous British actor called Frank Finlay, who was Laurence Olivier. And he did an extract. We kept, the joining point was that it was all from Pushkin, who is one of the greatest writers that most people in the West, apart from Russians, know little of, you know. He did Pushkin's wonderful poem called The Prophet. And we had this, directing people at a distance in a way was something that's something new I learned, you know. I thought, yes, of course, this is going to be so hard. And we talked in very great detail how it was going to be filmed. They had to film it themselves because I couldn't go there. And it was really interesting having even more input from actors than we normally get, even some technological input from them. Yes. But we batted back and forth until it was right in my mind, you know. So that was really wonderful. My husband has written Feast in the Plague Year. That's also what Pushkin wrote, strangely.
That's what Sam did.
And it's what Sam did. It's what Sam Crane did. I'm being prompted here. You see, we've got full theatre in this room.
The apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Feast in the Time of Plague Year, which was the piece that began running through fields. And it was so appropriate for the time. And it was written at the beginning of the 19th century. You know, at the beginning of the 20th century, sorry. 19th century, yes. Okay, I have been well prompted. I think a lockdown trilogy will be looked back upon with a kind of curiosity as to how we all got through it.
Yeah,
how we continued. I said in the chat that theatre is dead and technology is helping us to raise it again, if you like. And this is what we did, if we, you know.
I think this is so true, and I think the whole Zoom room technology has actually taken, you know, it's really enabled us to think outside the box more than ever. I mean, we've had to think outside the box, and it's so inspiring to see that people are, all of you women, of course, are just going forward with this huge banner.
Sorry, just before we go on to someone else, I just love the fact you say think outside the box, and we're all sitting here in this.
We're all sitting in boxes. I know. Yeah, I think so far outside the box. I'm down halfway down the river on my way to probably on my way to Kosovo.
Yes.
So Avra, I know that you have, you've got a production that you're also working on, Troy 2, right? Is that correct? That's coming up as well for you. That's been inspired by the pandemic.
Well, we've just started working on that. It all happened when I approached Karen Malpede, the American playwright, with a proposal that actually had to do with an edited collection that I'm working on, entitled Staging 21st Century Tragedies, Theatre, Politics and Global Crisis. Right. And I asked Karen to write a short play that has to do with the idea of crisis in any of its forms. So that was as things were becoming really heavy on COVID-19, and Karen came up with this amazing short play called Troy 2, as in the city of Troy, and 2 as in Troy, also Troy. That had to do with so many different aspects of the times we were living in like April and May, including the Black Lives Matter movement, of course, like a very, very strong thing for the United States, but also for the rest of the world. It had to be addressed in a book about crisis in some sense. And Karen and I talked about the possibility of making this a pandemic play, meaning this has to be shown on the internet somehow. Yeah. So we talked about different ideas of representing those scenes and working on Zoom. and staging things through Zoom. And we've just started working with Michaela, who is going to work as our video designer for this. And we are going to include people from all over the world and stage something through Zoom. And it's very interesting to me because I've always been very interested in conducting rehearsals remotely because I like working internationally, and being based in Greece or Cyprus, which are at the periphery of Europe, geographically speaking, in a sense. And having big visions about the world, I had to get used to rehearsing remotely from a very early time.
Yes.
In fact, the first project that I talked about, which was And God Said, was semi-done through Skype meetings with our Iranian actors and the Turkish actors while I was in Greece. So anyway, so Troy 2 is now happening, and it's interesting to discover a lot of your preconceptions about what real theater is or what art is changing in the process, and thinking about, oh, this cannot be theater, this is not art, this is just the internet. That's not true. It's just a matter of keep digging further in and pushing to reach that balance where you work with real actors, but the form is a little different to be, adjusted and flexible in the circumstances. Extreme measures for extreme times, I think. But yeah,
I agree. I could not agree with you more. And it's interesting you say that, because I think we're all finding new ways to approach our art and to create our art because of what we're going through in this. So I think good things are coming out of this crazy time. I think did we lose Lupe? I think we might have lost her. So hopefully, I know
we did lose Lupe.
Okay.
So she will hopefully be back.
Hopefully be back. But I'd love actually to talk to you, Burbuqe, because I know that you have, many, you're constantly creating with your theatre, Kosovo, the National Theatre of Kosovo, which you created and inspired. And I'm wondering what you're seeing the next step for you going forward.
Ka që du me cek, do më thonë në këtë kohë pandemisë, kemi arrit me realizu festivalin, edhe jo online. Do më thonë kjo ka qenë dëshira e flakët e jamja që mi pa njerëzit në teatr. Edhe kemi arrit mi pru shfaqet nuk kanë qenë flarta, po nga shtetet si Kroaci, si Bullgari, si Maqedoni, dikun që është ofër që me pas teatrin në me aktorët ofër, dhe shfaqet ka qenë shumë vogla. Kjo ka qenë dëshira jame ma e madhe, sepse prapo kthena, unë e kam lidhjen shumë me teknologji, muj me diskutu, po teatrin e du teatr, dhe teatri është I bukur edhe sensitiv ashtu që është.
So one thing that is very important is that even though we're in the pandemic time, Burbuqe has managed to do her international theater festival, and not online, but she brought in Kosovo so many plays from the other countries, even though they were not far. They were from Croatia, Bulgaria, and Macedonia. But it was her biggest, maybe challenging wish. So she fulfilled it. So even though she's very into technology, the theater still remains her biggest love, and that's why she wanted to do this festival in this extraordinary year, but physically, not online.
Nuk ka qenë sfidë biçe jamja, do më thonë po e krejt ekipit tam që kemi punu bashkë, po unë atë ditë nuk e kom thirrë veç ministrën tame të kulturës, po mas shumë e kom thirrë ministrin e shëndetësisë për më na liru ekipet që janë met në kufi. Kjo ka qenë ajo sfida jame shumë e madhe. Po kjo ka qenë sepse na jemi vend I vogël edhe njihem njëri me tjetrin, dhe jam falenderuese shumë për përkrahjen që e kanë bërë.
So it was not only Burbuqe's challenge, it was the challenge for the entire team that has worked on this festival. And not only the Minister of Culture that has helped, but she called so many times the Minister of Health, because there were so many, since it's pandemic, there are so many teams that were in the borders. But we're a small country and we know each other, so they helped a lot. And Burbuqe is very thankful for the help that they gave.
Kurse në planin tam personal, unë jam drejtu ka filme, ju kam tregu, domethënë që unë prej qendrës kinematografike të Kosovës kam fitu skenarin tam, dhe jam ka punoj në pjesën e ndërtimit domethënë aplikimeve për shtetet e rajon, siç është Shqipëria, Maqedonia edhe Malizi, sepse ky film përmban 50% të gjuhës shqipe dhe 50% të gjuhës serbo-kroate, se ngjarja ndodh në vitin 1963 në burg të Nishit, sepse është temë e të burgosunëve politik që është temë shumë aktuale e jona si historie jona. Kështu që jam ka punoj shumë në film, po gjithsesi nuk e luaj teatrin anash, gjithmonë jam afër teatrit dhe gjithmonë domethënë mendoj që diçka të vogël kam e punu në teatr dhe kam thonë edhe herën e kaluam, jam ka lexoj disa tekste që janë komedi sepse po mendoj që në kohën e pandemisë ka më shumë nevojë për buzëqeshje, sepse unë po mendoj që me të vërtetë ka qenë shumë e rëndë, shumë e vështirë, po na ka ofru shumë dashuri mes vetit. Të paktën jemi njoftu, sepse jeta dinamike të cilën jemi ka e bujmë shumë pak kemi kohë për njëri tjetrin. E në pandemi kemi pas shumë kohë për njëri tjetrin.
So in her personal working plan, she's more focused on her film. Since I think she mentioned it even though before.
Was it Rainbow? Was that the film?
Yeah, it's Rainbow, yeah. And actually she's working hard on the documentation that she needs to take care, because this film should hopefully be co-production with the other states as in Albania, Montenegro, and Macedonia, because 15% of the movie is in Albanian language, but 50% is in the Serbian language, because its topic is about the war and the jails that were political jails during the 163. And this is it. But nevertheless, so the theater, it's gonna be, Buce is gonna be back in the theater as well. She's reading actually some screenplays, and she wants to do a play that will bring more happiness because of the pandemic time and more love, because it was very difficult time that we have passed through. So basically, this is it. Though Burbuqe mentioned one more thing, that even though pandemic was very hard for us, it has its own positive way, because we were all together and we shared more love to each other because we were all locked down. So it has its positivity, even though it was hard.
Unë kam shumë shoqe që janë aktore dhe shokë që janë aktore, regjisor, që unë vazhdimisht ma herët kur nuk kam fol një orë në telefon. Tash flas gati me shumicën për ty në një orë telefon, edhe për planet, edhe për idetë, edhe për gjitha çka muj me bo, domethënë gjatë ose kemi ndaj lidhje video njëra me tjetrën, kjo ka, po them që na ka ofruar shumë.
So there are so many friends of Burbuqe that are actors and directors, and before the pandemic, Burbuqe never had talked to them like 1 hour on the cell phone, but now she can manage to talk 1 hour. It's all about the pandemics, and as well to do video calls with ours.
I find that tremendously inspiring and wonderful. Now I'm afraid we've lost Lupe again, but before we open the floor, I just wanted to ask each of you, and hopefully we'll get Lupe back. I wanted to ask each of you, ladies, what would your advice be to women artists as we move forward? If you had to say one thing, what would it be? Faynia, do you want to start?
Sorry, could you just repeat the question?
Yeah, what would your advice be to women artists as we move forward? You know, women artists that are coming up into this world in this current environment, and you know, and obviously this is here to stay. This is not going away, is it? What would your advice be to those women?
Well, your work is even more important. You've just got to get out there and do it.
Yes.
I mean, in some ways, I forgot to say, we've moved away from people, and we are doing a trilogy about insects.
Yes.
And that's where Moz, which you saw, the mosquito you saw in the little video, came from. And we're currently working on the bee. I mean, we wouldn't exist without the bee. So, again, like people have been saying, you can open up the heart with emotions, but you can also be funny. And you have to cheer people up as well as start making them think even deeper and going for books about things that they may not have gone to before, you know. So I think my advice to artists is please do it, and do it to the best of your ability, better than you've ever done it before, because it's more important than ever before.
That's great. Thank you, Faynia. Avra, what I'm sure you have something equally inspiring.
Well, I definitely share Faynia's proposition. Make a difference. Go out and do the work. Claim your confidence, and make meaningful theater. We need meaningful theater more than ever. It's not about small stories. It's about the big picture. It's about the world and how we can change the world, make the world a better place. And artists have a responsibility for that. And you can do it with humor. You can do it with, you know, reflecting on your own pain. But just go out there and think that this world should change somehow. And you have to be there and implement the change together with everyone else.
Thank you, Avra. Burbuqe, what would your advice be to women artists?
E kam shumë të rëndësishme, domethënë guximin edhe ballafaqimin me të vërtetën. Domethënë se na është një band I cili edhe pse është shumë I hapur, ka shumë kontradikta dhe shumë ndryshime. Dhe mendoj që krejt gratë, jo veç tonat, jo vetëm komuniteti prej Kosovës që mirët me teatr, duhet me dash teatrin, edhe duhet me punu, si teatrin edhe filmin. Kjo është puna ma e mirë. Mi largu paragjykimet, me dash teatrin dhe me ndërtu rrëfimin ma të mirë që është. Domethënë pjesën e narracionit, kronologjisë në teatr. Tash e përdorim teknologjinë, nuk e përdorim, po është shumë e rëndësishme me dash teatrin edhe me kriju teatr çdo herë, sepse teatri në çdo kohë jeton. Edhe thash edhe një herë, me çdo luftë që kom dash me bo, kom dash me tregu që edhe në kohë pandemie, edhe në kohë lufte, na kemi qenë nën represion shumë gjatë. Kemi pas një teatr shumë të vogël që është quajtur Dodona në Prishtinë, edhe që tash është teatri I fëmijëve kryesisht dhe të rive, vazhdimisht ka pas shfaqje. Dhe për ata kom luftu që edhe festivali mos më na u ndal gjatë pandemisë. Kështu që unë inkurajoj krejt njerëzit që me dash teatrin edhe me prodhu teatr sa ma shumë.
I encourage everybody to love theater, to find courage, and to remove all the prejudice and to make the best out of it, to find it better, the best possible way to build the story. And this is all because you should love theater in order to work on theater. So it's very important, and this is one of the reasons why she fought so much to do this year the film festival, even though it was theater festival, I'm sorry, even though it was a pandemic year. So this is it basically. And during the war in Kosovo, we had a very small theater called Dodona that today is more for kids and for youngsters. But even though in that repression time, people in Kosovo did so many plays. So if they could do that, we should do it as well now.
Yeah, I totally agree with you and hear you. I think, Lupe, do we have you back again? Because I think, yeah, she's coming back. She's coming back.
Can I just say, one of the things we've lost is the ability to travel, you know, and we learn so much from going to other cultures.
Yes,
and bringing it back to our culture. And I want to come to all of this wonderful panel's countries with my theatre, and I want their theatre to come to me following this, because I'm so glad to have met them all.
I could not agree with you more. I'm hoping that this dialogue will just continue into forever, into the into the rest of our foreseeable future. Lupe, my darling, you're back. You're there.
That's such an effort. It was my battle with the country here. But yes, I'm back here.
So actually, before we open the floor, Lupe, I know we were just talking about, how the pandemic has inspired our projects going forward. And I know that you have an incredible story, which is concentrating on the generations of women within a family. So maybe you'd like to say a little bit about that, because it's under such a again, a very well thought out, and what we need to appreciate.
Well, I'm going back to my notes, mostly because after all this technological battle, I'm, with my nerves. Well, in these very weird pandemic times, department stores have opened when museums and theaters unexplainably remained closed. Since the very first lockdown, technology has been the only possibility for theater. Some purists first didn't want to negotiate the physicality of theater. I have no doubt on how fundamental these aspects are to theater, but I quickly understood that it was a matter of survival. The only way out for theater was online. So I chose to bet for the positive instead of the negative. I created GALTO, that is Literary Action Group for the Organic Theater. That is the videos that you show about my work, is the latest I've done. In March 2020, a creative platform to produce theater online as a way of reflecting about the difficult moment we were living in. From the first draft until the last dress rehearsal, I accompanied playwrights and actors in the process, very diverse in age, in gender, in academics, and whichever. And we surprisingly discovered new expressive possibilities and tools. For example, the actor who performs alone at home may hear her own voice as never before. That opens the possibilities of a deeper and more honest emotional connection. The actor being also the cameraman leads to the discovery of unexpected angles and moves. On the other hand, the voyeur condition, that original curiosity that drives the public to the theater since the beginning of times, reaches a paroxysm as the spectator knows the actor is performing in her real life habitat. The public loved that honesty. Another advantage of making theater online is that we can work with people that are far away. Mm-hmm. This is very meaningful to us as Venezuelans, since we have experienced a very significant immigration of talent, especially in the past 5 years. It is also very significant for the Venezuelan public living abroad that can finally enjoy seeing the theater that speaks their own culture. 6 million of Venezuelans have migrated in the last 2 years. And it's even more significant for the public living in the country that is afraid of going to the theater because of the insecurity in the streets. After GALTO, I created Paisanos. That means people who share a homeland. I invited 10 Venezuelan theater creators of diverse age, gender, social, theater backgrounds and preferences, living in and out of the country, to write together in consensus and overcoming the thick post-truth political fog. It was quite a challenge in a country where forgiveness and agreement seems impossible.
We ended up writing a single play that portrayed our contrasting ways to understand our local reality. We succeed by respecting our differences. We found a way for each of us to express freely and open up space for every particular point of view. We created all together as one. I think that working online gave us the distance in space and time that favors that agreement. So I would say that being forced to do theater online confirms once again the reach and strength of theater in delivering complex emotional content, since it has facilitated the catharsis we so badly need in these difficult circumstances. Not only that, technology has opened new possibilities for theater to compete the new economy of distraction of social media. Bringing live theater to the comfort of home is joining the wide range of options and offers a legitimate alternative. Instead of watching Netflix, YouTube, IGTV, or TikTok, you may choose to watch a live theater play. That was my bet, and I think we won.
I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right there. So I think actually at this point, we can open up the floor to questions, because I think there's people are dying to ask you questions here. We have Stefania up first, right, Katie? Hi, Stefania. So what's your question?
So this is for Burbuqe. Is that how you say your?
Burbuqe.
Burbuqe. But also for everybody. But what have you found to be your greatest challenge in translating theater to screen, video, Zoom with a virtual audience? Oh, my cat. And then also kind of connected with that, also for everybody, have you done or seen any 2020 post-COVID productions with the audience mics, videos on during the production?
And you don't want to, Burbuqe, that's for a question for Burbuqe first. Yeah.
Faleminderit shumë për pyetjen.
Thank you very much for the question.
Gjatë e komendu, para se me qenë pandemia, gjatë e komendu një shfaqje e cila flet shumë për emocionin që mu lujtë në teatr nëpërmes aktorët mos me qenë në skenë, por aktor me ku një projekcion e aktorët me fol para kamerës, me pjesë ose vetëm me sy, ose vetëm me gojë, ose vetëm me vesh e ata me fol. Domethënë ka qenë një fanjesi e papirusit. Domethënë e kom lexu gjatë si zbulim. Edhe kjo ku një prej ideve pa ndodhur kjo. Pa ndodhur pandemia, por vazhdimisht, domethënë e kom rujt pjesën e teatrit klasik. Ardha pandemisë më ka shtime me ndu në këtë drejtim. Dhe besam që unë studentave të mi ju ligjeroj edhe pjesën e teatrit, edhe pjesa e teatrit shpeshar është shumë e vështirë kur jap pjesë që duhet me qenë pjesa praktike, edhe duhet mu majt nëpërmes videove të ndryshme, por e kom pa që ka pas edhe rezultat. Kjo ka qenë një sfidë jamja, po edhe një bashkëpunim shumë mirë jemi me, domethënë nëpërmes teknologjisë kom arrit me bo një rezultat të tillë.
Burbuqe has thought long time ago about doing a theater play with a projector, and that the actors act in that projector, so before the camera, and it is all shot, but some of them to talk with the eyes, some with the nose, some with the ear, and some with the mouth. So it was just an idea, and during the pandemic time, she thought that she should realize that for sure, and to bring it real, because so we know why, because we were all locked. This is one thing, but she worked so hard that not to incorporate those two technology so much in the theater, because she loves the classical theater.
punojnë ligjërojnë me studenta edhe pjesën praktike e punojnë nëpërmez Zoomit edhe është shumë
And
ka
one
arritur shumë
one
rezultate.
more thing that that is very inspiring and that was really important and had a great result was that Burbuqe is she's a professor as well, and during the pandemic, all the practical lessons about the theater she's done in the Zoom meeting. So it was some kind of the point of the inspiring to bring online or all recorded screenplay.
Wow, amazing. Did Faynia or Avra or Lupe, did you have any thoughts as well?
Well, there's something that Lupe said that made me remember Sam Crane was in a play directed by a wonderful director we have in England called Kati Mitchell, and the play was called Some Trace of Her. And during the play, he actually, as the actor, had to carry a film camera on his shoulder and film things at the moment during the play that fed into the play. I thought that was really interesting, and it really worked.
I would imagine it made it very present.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, wonderful. Avra, what about you?
Just something that Burbuqe just said about teaching online and teaching a practical, something as, practical as directing or acting online. This is something that I have been doing for a very long time because I teach in an open university. And one of the most recent assignments for the students was for them to adapt Kafka's short story In the Penal Colony, which has a lot, and Metamorphosis. They could choose either or. Both plays are very, very kind of suggestive of the kind of times we live in. And they came up with amazing things. They actually did animated versions of the world of the play, not using real actors, but animation figures. And some of them pre-recorded actors and used animation, so they prepared mixed media projects. And I think this is another thing that the pandemic has taught us, becoming more creative with how we teach our students, and that's very good, because again, that can expand our scope to other countries, work with different people from abroad, teach in different places at the same time. So yeah.
No, I think you're absolutely right, because I think what we're finding now more than ever is that you don't have to be in the same country in order to be in the same time zone. It's just you're in the same room. But no,
right.
it does give us a certain amount of freedom. Lupe, did you have anything you wanted to add in response to Stefania's question? Oh, you're mute, darling. You're mute. You're mute.
Yes. I'm not sure if this is going to be in response to a Stefania's comment, but about what Avra said some minutes ago of creating a whole universe through video. That is amazing how she, using a skirt, an enormous skirt, create a whole world.
Yeah.
I think video in theater has many possibilities. Not only for it's a way for assuming social responsibility as a creator. That is my way of using it, to bring reality on stage, but also to comment reality, and also to teach theater. In one of my workshops, I asked my students to go to the streets and make little videos and photos of what's going on the street. And then from there, we start writing. And that was one of the tools we use in Galto then after, to take photos from the window that is a different point of view. When you are in lockdown, you take the photo from the window, from your only point of view, that is your home, and you look things differently. And they did videos that we use afterwards for playwriting. Yeah. So it's a tool that is not only served for creating on stage reality, truth, confiability, because all you see in video is more real than you might see in a fiction on stage. You trust in video, what you see in video. But also as a tool for making your student make a commitment with reality, with the stories that need to be told, that are waiting out there to be told.
Yeah.
There are our responsibilities somehow.
Yes, yeah. I think we hold a lot of responsibility in our hands for our upbringing of our younger generation. I totally agree. I believe we have a question from, is it Patricia Hind? Hello.
Yes, hello.
Patricia, what would you like to ask your question?
Yes, I would. Thank you, panel, for everything that you've said. It's been fascinating, and I've particularly enjoyed seeing the excerpts from your work. So thank you all very much indeed. My question picks up, I think, on some of the points that have been made, and it's to do with the challenges for live theatre going forward. We're obviously going to be living with the COVID-19 problem for some time to come. And so my question to the panel is really, do you think that and the developments you've been talking about might, this fusion of film and live theatre, not simply videoing live theatre and streaming that, but the fusion, the artistic fusion of the two genres, is that going to make a huge difference? Is that likely to be a new genre going forward? And if so, picking up on some of the latter points, how do we train the talent, the new talent that's coming through? How do we train them for this new genre, of this fused genre, which may be major, which may be significant in the future of live and film theatre going forward?
Yeah, so it's a great point. Do you want to? Who wants to launch that one off?
Quite a lot in there. Apologies.
That's a good question, that.
Yeah.
I think we are going to have to rethink the training of actors, because normally, I mean, I went to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, RADA, and you were trained as an actor for the stage. There was no hint of training you for film in my day. I think actors will have to learn the difference in what is required for the camera and what is required for the theatre, and they will need to explore the possibilities that they have within them for both media, because I think people have been using recorded media for a long while in theatre, but it's going to be rethought, definitely. The possibilities are going to be rethought. The mixture is going to become much more prevalent now than it was before. There was always a division between the two. And I think playwrights, screenwriters, directors, actors, and obviously the crew will all have to learn both techniques, because I think, as you say, there will be a lot more of mixed, if it's not mixed media, it's actually two different approaches. And how exciting for the playwrights to actually be able to have both to express themselves. And I find, as a director, what a chance it is. You know, we don't have to separate and go out to Pinewood to make a film, or, you know, I mean, the sad thing is, I think, to walk in the West End now and see all those theatres shut. You know, that really is. And we do have to think what it's going to be like, not when we go back, but when we go forward.
Yes, I think that's a great point. Actually, going forward is really how we have to look at our vision. Avra, or did you have something? I'm sure you had something that you wanted to add to that.
Well, I think, yeah, I agree with everything that's been said so far. I think the directors will become more of video editors, so they'll have even more control over the entire product, in a sense. And it's a matter of yes, training our actors, training ourselves to work with the two media and kind of combine them together, but also train our audiences to appreciate this new way of art, this new way of spectating, because you're not in a room with other live people, but you are very much alone and isolated. And I think there's something about theater being disengaged from its vital organs, which are the community of live spectators, that is very sad. And I'm hoping no matter what happens, we can go on creating new forms and mixed media projects and work with fusions. But ultimately, we will be missing live theater so much that I'm not sure this is going to go on forever. It will never replace the moments of real theatrical crisis that we love so much.
Yeah, I feel like we're probably all going to end up in a site-specific world, like Faynia, you know. That's the way to go forward.
But headphones are very isolating. What you were
Yes.
saying about isolating.
Yes, it's very true, because you don't feel like you're encompassing the room. It looks like we have a question from Richard Crane.
Here I am. Okay. Could you just mute yourself? Are you? Oh. This is what technology can do when it all goes wrong. What I wanted to say was that the thrill of theatre is that raw connection between the actor and the audience. But sometimes technology can become a barrier between me and you, as it is doing now. But it's necessary because, as Faynia has said, theatre is effectively dead now. That is live theatre. And we're going to need a genius in technology or whatever to bring it back to life, but with care, because what must not be lost is that ancient connection between the performer and the audience. Thank you.
Okay, that wasn't really a question, Richard, but thank you.
Shut me up. Shut me up.
But it was great. It was great. Lupe, did you want to respond? Thank you, Richard.
Yes.
It's always
Well,
good to
I
see
want
you.
to make a comment.
Yeah.
That what makes theater undestroyable is the risk. Because every time we are on stage, we take risks. It's like life. It's like real life. It's not like in the movies. In the movies, you edit, you cut, you reshoot.
Yeah.
In theater, you live the moment. So that is something you may not destroy. And these pandemic days are not forever. So this is not about recording theater to show them after the video. This is making live theater on Zoom, taking the risk and sharing with the public the truth that is behind this effort. That means my own home, my own dress as a costume, my difficulties in sound, in internet connection, in my husband walking in my back. all of that, I think it's an invitation for the public to get engaged, because there is a new amount of truth behind our performance live from home. It's our real home. It's our real reality. And people love to see that. Yeah. So we have a lot to learn from these days of trying to do real theater, in live theater through these technologically, through these tools, because afterwards we are going to have new sources for inspiration and for, I think this is a beautiful opportunity, for example, to explore the monologue. Monologue has been transformed in a stand-up comedy. And it's not considered and respect as a genre of theater, real theater, because it's very difficult in structure, to structure a monologue in dramatic terms, really. It's not a matter of, you know, talking about your personal stuff, but making theater. So since we are isolated, I think it brings us an opportunity to explore this genre inside theater. And it's so portable that afterwards we are going to be ready to go out, each one with its own piece. Well, that's my
I
hope of future.
Yeah, I think you're right. Absolutely. I think you know, there's going to be so many ways that we are going to find well, that to think outside the box, not to requote what I said earlier. I think we have one last question from Kate Muth. Is that how you pronounce your name, Kate? Would you like to come on and ask your question, Kate? Hi, hello.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for being here. It's so exciting to meet you all and beautiful to see you, Avra, who I've had the wonderful chance to work with numerous times. What a genius. I think it's very exciting that we can find each other in this way where we wouldn't have without the hellish blessing that is Zoom. And I'm sorry if I'm kind of re-upping because it sounded like we were coming to a nice conclusion there, but piggybacking a bit on what Richard had said, I always used to find, like with video on stage, I always felt that there was this distinct separation, almost like a coldness and a warmness, like the human warmness and then the cold video. And I feel like, especially with so much of the work I've seen here, and I know Avra does this beautifully, there's been this straddling of that gap, that chasm that's been bringing the human story, the technology more closely together. But here's my question or my wonderment. We may not have the answer yet, but how do we, as theater makers, storytellers, find new ways? How are we going to do this where we do come through, you know, the technology to find that human connection? It's not going to be the same as live theater, but how can we do this better? Are there little tiny surgical things that any of you women are looking at or working on to sort of rectify this distance, the feeling of distance? Is there something that we're missing? There is something that we haven't discovered yet because we've never had to, about how we bring this together to have more of a, to reach each other in a more human way. That's a big, maybe we can't answer that now. We'll have to come back next week.
That sounds like a pretty epic question there, Kate.
Sorry.
Does anyone have an answer to that? Any inspiring last words?
People do need theatre. I mean, I just remember when we can still go out for walks. We're still encouraged to go for a walk to keep fit. And I can remember we walked to a park and Richard and I sat down and just started reading the play that we couldn't do because it was postponed because of the pandemic. And gradually we realized the need. People gradually came up at a distance to listen to what we were saying. And we weren't performing in particular, but as soon as the people came, we started performing. And they needed it. There is a need for it. So I don't know what the new thing is going to be. I just know that certainly as a director, and I'm sure other directors and actors are the same, we will continue to explore what theatre is. We've not found it yet. We think we know what live theatre is. But I think this is what you're saying and what's behind your question. You know, what is theatre?
And what is this new name, this new thing that is happening now? It's not film, it's not theater, it's not television, right? And I think it is a beautiful thing in that I feel like audiences are relaxing a little bit and enjoying the fact that they can see humans in their homes and the reality of what it is to be human, which is quite humbling. even for celebrities that we've had to work with, when you see everything head south behind them, or it kind of stinks because the echo or whatever, that humanity is like what we're all hoping to find, I think, in a story anyways. So it's kind of a beautiful, again, hellish blessing that we have, but I love the problem of it. I think it's really worth working on. So thank you all for doing this.
I think you're right. And I've been trying to test it on my grandchildren. they're the next generation, you know? And my 12-year-old grandson just said the other day, I'm being sacrificed. I want to go to school. Because all the schools are now shut, you know, so I'm being sacrificed.
I love the drama of your grandson. So I think with that, I think we can, I just like to say thank you so much to all of our amazing panelists. It's been so inspiring to share the Zoom room with you. Really, thank you so much. We hope you'll be inspired by today's program to find out more about the 27 remarkable women from 18 countries who were nominated for the 2021 Gilder Coigney Award. All of the program events are available for viewing on the League of Professional Theatre Women's YouTube channel, including the award ceremony. So you can also visit the League of Professional Theatre Women's website for more information. The links are included in the closing credits. I just want to thank Faynia, Avra, Lupe, Berisha, Burbuqe, and the lovely Alba. Thank you so much for an incredible, inspiring talk today. I hope that we all get to share time in person one day. But thank you very, very much.